Your heads and close your eyes.
Let us pray. Our eternal God, we give you thanks once again for the multiple blessings that you have given us today. We know that there are many people who woke up this morning but could not get up. They are still lying in a hospital bed or a bed at home, and they're afflicted with some type of whatever affliction. And you have blessed us where we are able to move and everything's working. If we begin to thank you for all that you've done for us, we would need the remainder of this year. But we pause to truncate it just to let you know that we thank you. And now for this meeting that we've come to participate in, we ask for your guidance. Give us the wisdom that is needed and the receptive ears so we can understand what your plans are for us. We thank you for those who have traveled here for this occasion, and we pray your presence be among us through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor Mills. Good evening once again, everyone. My name is Preston Ferguson Jr., representing Fincastle Media Group. I'd like to thank you all for joining us here this evening. On behalf of EA Energy Bahamas, I want to warmly welcome the residents, community leaders, business owners, and stakeholders with us tonight. Your presence underscores that the future of energy in Abaco is a priority for us all. The Bahamas is currently engaged in a vital national conversation regarding energy, sustainability, and resilience. The government of the Bahamas has set a target for achieving 30% in renewable energy by 2030 to reduce emissions, strengthen energy security, and build a cleaner, greener future for our islands. The project we are discussing tonight is a significant part of that journey. EA Energy Bahamas is working to bring reliable, sustainable electricity to Abaco and Eleuthera through the development of two state-of-the-art hybrid energy facilities. The goal is to create a modern, resilient microgrid system that meets growing energy demands while improving reliability and reducing environmental impact. These facilities will be located on government-provided land adjacent to existing Bahamas power and light infrastructure. By combining solar power, battery storage for rapid backup, and natural gas for stable supply, we will strengthen the grid stability and support energy independence. Tonight's town hall is an opportunity to share information, hear from the project experts, and most importantly, engage with the community as this initiative progresses. To guide our discussion and help us keep the conversation going, please join me in welcoming CEO of EA Energy, Mr. Errol Farquharson, and environmental consultant, Mr. Christopher Russell. We will have presentations done by them. Shortly afterwards, we will host a question and answer segment, and then we will also have light refreshments afterwards. We'd like to give a thank you for those of us joining us on the YouTube and our live stream as well. Without further ado, please welcome Mr. Errol Farquharson.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson, for that introduction. And again, thank you all for being out here tonight on this very important and informative session that we hope to be here to give another update. We were here last year to give our first update to the public on what was happening with the project in Abaco. And now we thought it necessary to come back and give an update so that you are fully aware of what's going on in your island and what's being done on your behalf. So as Mr. Ferguson mentioned, my name is Errol Farquharson, and I am the CEO of EA Energy. And what I'm going to do tonight is to give you another update on the project. We're going to have an executive summary, and then I'll just give a project overview, just to bring you up to speed with where we're at with the project. And as Mr. Ferguson also mentioned, there will be some time later on in the evening where we'll have a question and answer session for those who have any queries that you may want to have clarified. So right now I'll get into the executive summary of my presentation. So EA Energy was awarded the hybrid power plant projects for both Abaco and Eleuthera. And this project meant that we were responsible for the design, the financing, the construction, the operation, and maintenance of the facility. And of course, we would be doing that for a 25-year period. And how did we get here? The situation overview. So in November of 2022, the government of the Bahamas released an updated version of its National Development Contribution document, in which it indicated it wanted to maintain a 30% reduction target in greenhouse gas and emissions, and a commitment to achieving at least 30% renewable energy in the energy mix by the year 2030. So as part of the strategy, the government, in collaboration with Bahamas Power and Light, issued an RFP on December 5th of 2023. And the RFP aimed to establish long-term solutions for not only Abaco, but also for Eleuthera, to replace aging and inefficient power plants. The final award letter was issued on September 11th of 2024, confirming that EA Energy selection to implement the renewable energy and energy storage systems in Eleuthera, including Harbour Island, and in Abaco, including the Keys. So EA Energy Limited signed a long-term power purchase agreement, or what we call a PPA, with the Bahamas Power and Light on the 9th of April 2025, which is last year, for the development and operation of a hybrid energy generation facility in Eleuthera and Abaco. Conscious Energy, who is a partner in this venture, is a subsidiary of Global Holdings International, Global Investment Holdings, and Verdant Company, which is the Bahamian arm of the group, is a Bahamian entity specializing in energy infrastructure and clean energy infrastructure, and both shareholders of EA Energy. Conscious Energy brings its experience and expertise in renewable energy and sustainable power solutions, while Verdant Company Limited focuses on enhancing the Bahamian energy resilience through local industry knowledge and clean energy solutions. And with me tonight, I just want to recognize two of our full-time staff members that we have on the project already. Mr. Emery Ozer, he's our project director, and he's going to be based in Nassau. He's one of our team members out of Conscious Energy, which is based in Turkey. And then Mr. Oscar Kelechi, he is going to be our island manager here in Abaco. He recently moved here just within the last 2 weeks with his wife and daughter. And he will be our Abaco manager here. So we really have men on the ground working here on the project. And just for a project overview here, you see some of the information that we have related to the installation that we're going to be putting here in Abaco. So in Abaco, we're going to have 30 megawatts of gas engines installed. We're going to have a solar capacity installation of 15 megawatts, and then a BESS capacity or battery capacity of 20, what we call 20 megawatt hours, and a total generation of 118 million kilowatt hours. And you can see the numbers that are planned for Eleuthera. Eleuthera is a little bit smaller than Abaco, so Abaco will have a little bit more of more infrastructure installed. So some of the project timeline information is up there as well. We signed our PPA in April of 2025, and we plan to have our final design and building permit issued by the second quarter of this year. And at this point, we have already received all of our licenses that were required through ERCA. We've also received our CEC certificate from the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection. And we've also received our licensing from BPL as well. So all of the final regulatory and the final building permit, like I said, is coming in the second quarter. So all of the regulatory requirements we have achieved at this point. So the start of construction works we have scheduled for the first quarter of this year, which is by the end of this month. At this time, by the 30th of this month, we expect to have 44 containers of equipment and material being delivered here in Abaco to start the project off. And then we also plan to have our official groundbreaking here in Abaco on the 17th of April to be able to kick off the actual construction of the project as well. So we have big things that's coming up soon, and we are going to be inviting our youth, the residents, and local stakeholders to these events so that you can see and know what is happening. And at the end of this presentation, we're going to have a little slide presentation so you can see what's actually happening at the site here in Abaco. And I just also want to mention that through our solar installations, we are in the process of getting certified by an international carbon credit rating agency. So you may have heard about carbon credits. So through our solar installations, we're going to be able to gain carbon credits, and with those carbon credits, we're going to be able to exchange them on the international market to be able to raise funds on that as well. So it's a very critical part of our project that we are involved in, and it's a very important one because not too many installations can achieve this qualifications. So some of the key parties of our project, of course, we have the BPL and the Bahamas government. And of course, the Bahamas government is important. They provided the land that's required for us to do this project. Here in Abaco, we got 60 acres of land just off of the Wilson City power site, which you're going to see a little bit later in the presentation. And that was granted through a lease agreement with the government. And then on the other side, we have Verdant and Consus, who are the main shareholders of EA Energy. And we also have Bahamian shareholders that's part of the company that I'll show you on the next slide. ECF is what we call the owner's engineer representative from the government, and we have regular meetings with them. They are responsible for overseeing the design of the project to ensure that all the design and the construction that's being done is being done within the standards that's required. So we have regular meetings with them, and they have to report back to the government of what's happening. Some of our solution partners, we have the company called Iltechno. This is a company out of Turkey. They are going to be our main contractor, what we call the EPC contractor, and they're going to be responsible for that. EPC stands for engineering, procurement, and construction and contracting. So they're going to be responsible for the overall development and building of the site, the power plant. Inoxva is a company out of India, and they're the ones who are going to be providing all of our LNG infrastructure for the plant, our gas tanks, and our regasification systems. Island Power Producers is a local company here that will be providing the LNG supply out of Nassau for us. And then some of our advisors on the project, we have AFRI, which is a company out of the UK, which provides us some engineering support. And then we have, they're the owners engineers, and then we have Watson Farley, our legal advisors as well. And then we have local advisors, one of which is here tonight from Russell Craig and Associates, our environmental consultants. And then we have local engineers from IDDC. So we have quite a mix there of main stakeholders involved in the project. And then this slide, just to give you an idea of the shareholders of EA Energy. As I mentioned, Verdant Company is the local party to the agreement, owns 37.5%, and Consus Energy out of Turkey has another 37.5%, and 25% of EA Energy is owned by Bahamians we had an exercise last year that was managed by CFAL, where we had local retail investors buy shares into the company, and it was well received, and we had local persons from each islands as well, Eleuthera and Abaco, who also took part in that. And you can see here where it reads, so Bahamian participation in the project ensures that Bahamians are directly involved in the projects that power their homes, businesses, and industries, fostering a sense of community ownership and pride. So by investing in these power plants, Bahamian shareholders will not only contribute to the green transformation of the Bahamas, but also the financial gains of the project with highly visible income. So when the plant does well, Bahamians in turn will do well as well. And as I mentioned, this year is going to be a 25-year project, and the and the estimated cost of this project between both islands, Abaco and Eleuthera, right now is pegged at $160 million. So it's quite a significant investment. Briefly, our project overview. We're talking about supporting the Bahamas' green transformation. You know, this is some of the points that are the drivers for why we're doing this project. So the first one we're talking about is to reduce the dependence on polluting fossil fuels. So right now, a lot of the infrastructure and power facilities that BPL uses diesel, heavy fuel oil, and automotive diesel oil that produces a lot of emissions. And there's fossil fuel, which is also very expensive. So by introducing the solar plants, we're reducing our dependence upon fossil fuels by using solar. The second one is to combat the rising energy demand. So as you may be able to see yourselves on your island, I mean, since Dorian, you know, Abaco is still bouncing back very well. There's a lot of growth, a lot of development going on, homes, businesses that are coming back, but they need a reliable source of power to be able to do that. So because of this rising demand, it is imperative that we work on improving and installing a reliable source of power for our residents and our businesses to be able to function properly. And then thirdly, to decommission aging and unreliable power infrastructure. So you can see in some of the pictures there, these are actual pictures. I mean, actual pictures, Abaco and Eleuthera, some of the facilities that we actually have here now. So these, like it says there, some of these things are at the end of life, over 30 years old. So it's critical that these things be replaced because they are really costing too much to maintain, too much to operate. So we're going to replace them with more efficient and effective infrastructure. And again, just to talk a little bit again about briefly the project overview. So those again are some of the numbers in terms of what we're installing on the islands, the capacity for the gas engines, the solar, as well as the battery capacity, and how much power we're going to be generating. And again, just to highlight the projects are in Abaco and Eleuthera again. Okay. And the site locations, just to reiterate. Here in Abaco, the site that we're going to be building on is just adjacent to the existing power plant in Wilson City. And as I mentioned, it's 60 acres of land that we have to install our solar site as well as our power station for the gas engines. The site is all cleared up and is ready for construction. It has been turned over to the contractor. And as I mentioned, they have 44 containers of equipment that's coming in to Abaco by the end of this month in preparation to start the construction works. And in Eleuthera, we have 32 acres of land just adjacent to the existing Hatchet Bay plant in Eleuthera that will be doing the same construction for a solar and gas engine plant there as well. Some of our important timelines, briefly touched on some of these already, but just to go over some of the points, the main points of the project so far. So we had the RFP was issued, as I mentioned, in December of 2023. We got our full award of the project in September of 2024. We signed our PPA with BPL in April of 2025. We raised our funds over the second quarter of 2025. We signed our contract with our EPC contractor, as I mentioned, in December of 2025. We have the plans to commencement of construction works at the site starting in March and April of this year. And we plan to end construction by March or April of 2027. And then, of course, at the end of our term, 25 years of operation is scheduled to be in 2052. And it's at that point that the plants and all of the equipment at that point will be turned over to BPL at no cost for them to take over. Some other important dates that's not on there, as I mentioned, we have our groundbreaking, which is scheduled for Abaco on the 17th of April and in Eleuthera on the 20th of April. So keep that date in mind. If you want to be a part of that, it's going to be open to the public. So we're going to have that happen at the site at Wilson City on Friday, the 17th of April. And then again, like I said, our first delivery of equipment and heavy machinery will be scheduled for the 30th of this month. So that right now is just to give you a basic update of where we are. And like I said, at the end of the presentations, we're going to have some time for if you have any questions that you want clarification on, you can ask. But right now, coming up next will be our environmental consultant, Mr. Christopher Russell, who will give some idea and some updates on the environmental aspects of the project and what's been done to this point. Mr. Russell.
Thank you, Errol, and good afternoon to all. Being a former lecturer, I tend to stand and talk to people. So I'm going to take this mic and sort of okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Errol. And so I am Chris Russell, Managing Principal of Russell, Craig & Associates, a retired public servant, having served 40 years in government. I retired like 4 years ago and entered this environmental field. And so my task tonight is to give you an overview as to what we did in terms of environmental assessment on this site prior to it being cleared. And as Errol would have referenced, we now have environmental clearance from the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection, which means that our environmental assessment reports were agreed by the DEPP. So I'm going to give you an oversight as to what we did to get to the point where we got our certificate of environmental clearance. And as you can see from these slides, you can see the actual location as to where the power plant will be positioned in Wilson City. So, as Errol referenced before, we're talking about the power plant is situated on 60 acres of crown land, and it's going to be a hybrid microgrid system, as referenced earlier. So we had to do various surveys, and the first survey is in the natural environment, which means that we had to survey the entire biodiversity on site. And so our findings are quite interesting in that the vegetation type is called a dry pine forest ecosystem, right? And we identified 53 plant species, of which 8 were protected under the Forestry Act and regulations, and combined, those 8 protected species represented over 138,000 plants that were protected, okay? Based on our analysis of the sample plots that we did, the surveys. And 2 of those species were invasives, which included the casuarina and Brazilian pepper. So you know invasive species are not a good thing for the Bahamas, and so casuarinas are everywhere, and Brazilian peppers, we want to try and eradicate those. So we are in the process of doing that as part of the project. With respect to avian surveys, which means birds, we were able to identify some 18 species that were recorded during the survey. Now, as you may be aware, all birds are protected under the Wild Birds Protected Act of the Bahamas of 1952, as classified by the IUCN. And so we found 1 endemic species, which is Bahama mockingbird, and there were 18 species altogether, and they were all considered permanent resident breeding birds. In terms of biodiversity assessment, that means that anything that was alive, any living thing that we found on the site, we were able to record. And as you can see, there were multiple species of biodiversity, from butterflies to dragonflies to lizards. We even found a site of a wild boar, and even feral cats. So there was significant biodiversity on the site. In terms of environmental impacts, so we use what is called a qualitative assessment criteria, where we have various factors like the nature, the type, likelihood, scale, duration, reversibility, etc. So I'm going to just go briefly to give you an indication as to what this all means in terms of description. From the point of view of the nature, the choice is a direct, which means that by clearing this land, you impact this site directly, because you're going to clear the 60 acres, right, for infrastructure and the power plant, okay? In terms of type, it's going to be negative, because you're going to remove vegetation, therefore it's going to impact the landscape in a negative way. However, to offset that, we were able to apply for a permit to harvest protected trees with the forestry department. And so we were issued a permit to remove all the vegetation, okay, from that site. So in essence, not too fast, go back. In essence, it was a negative impact, but we have approval for their removal, and of course, there's a need for mitigation. The likelihood of it happening is certainly the case because the impacts and benefits will be result once the actions defined are completed. In terms of scale, we recognize that the habitat itself will be impacted, but it's restricted to the local area. It's not island-wide, right? The duration of the impact is going to be long-term because by removing the plant communities, right, there's direct impact in the local area, all right? Reversibility, in essence, the choice is irreversible because by impacting the natural environment, we have to mitigate it in some way. So mitigation is necessary. In terms of overall significance, the impacts are very significant. So the choice here is significant. And so because the site conditions are altered to a great extent. From the point of view of severity, in terms of terrestrial, what we do here in terms of impacts, there's a scale we use for measuring the severity of impacts from 1 to 3 to 5. So 1 means the lowest level of impact, 3 means medium, and 5 means the maximum. So if we look at the various factors, for example, the terrestrial landscape, we have an impact of 5, which means that by removing so much vegetation, the impact is very high. Biodiversity is also high, we give it a rating of 5. Avifauna, we give it a rating of 3. Visual and aesthetics, we give it a rating of 3. And for coastal marine, we give it a rating of 1 because we are far away from the coastline. In terms of hydrology, which means water, we give it a rating of 1 because we recognize that fuel and chemical spills that are not properly treated or properly procedures for remediation are not there, it can impact the groundwater resources. So proper spill management techniques are necessary to avoid impacting the groundwater table. In terms of erosion, we give it a rating of 1, as there is the potential for some soil erosion. Once you remove vegetation, there's a risk of soil movement, but in this case, by retaining vegetation buffers, we can reduce the incidence of soil erosion. In terms of air quality, we give it a rating of 3 because we recognize that during construction of this plant, there's going to be associated impacts to the air, and so by addressing it, we will have to implement adequate management techniques to ensure that we reduce the impact on human health and safety. With respect to noise, we give it a rating of 3 because we recognize that once you start constructing, you're going to have the noise levels are going to rise, and therefore we have to ensure that we have proper protection for that. In terms of solid waste, we give it a reference of 1 or rating of 1. We know that if solid waste are not treated properly or removed, it's going to be an eyesore. And so we have to make sure that hazardous wastes are properly managed to ensure that there's no penetration into the groundwater resources. Occupational health and safety, we give it a rating of 5. Why? Because we recognize that where workers do not wear their proper protective equipment, there's a risk of injury and physical damages and loss of life. In terms of fire and hurricane, we all know that the Bahamas, and Abaco in particular, is very vulnerable at risk of high incidence of not only forest fires, but also hurricanes. And so the risk is high because we have a dry pine forest ecosystem that every year, as you know in Abaco, there's always forest fires. And so there's a need for mitigation in that respect. Of course, hurricanes occur every year and the risk is high, so what we have in place would be a hurricane preparedness and recovery plan and also a fire management plan to address any issues of fires. In terms of land use, currently the land is actually a pine forest system, but it is undeveloped. Now it is being cleared, so the land use has changed, and so we give it a rating of 5. From the point of view of economics, we know that the construction of this particular infrastructure, this plant, it has a beneficial impact. We're talking about a lot of money in terms of investing, a lot of money, job creation, of Bahamians employed, so the overall economic benefit to the island of Abaco will be positive. From a cultural standpoint, we give it a rating of 1 because there are no cultural resources that were identified on the property. Now, having spoken to the impacts, the question is how do you mitigate those impacts that we talked about? So for every factor, there are mitigating measures that we put in place. From the point of view of terrestrial ecosystems, we talk about maintaining a 25 to 50 feet vegetation buffer along the periphery of the property, and that is now in place. So there's going to be maintenance of forest along the periphery to act as a windbreak. The idea is also to remove all the invasive species that is on the property. All the Australian pines have been removed and the Brazilian pepper. And also the intention is, once the plan is up and running, to establish new landscape areas planting native and endemic species. With respect to biodiversity, again, by retaining the buffer zone, you would also ensure that the biodiversity that was removed will come back eventually. From the point of view of avifauna, again, once constructions are completed, and noise levels are back to minimum, the birds will come back again once they were there before. From the point of view of visual and aesthetics, we know that by properly management of waste, the site will be aesthetically pleasing, and by introducing native and endemic species within the landscape, the site will retain its visual and aesthetic values. In terms of hydrology, again, by employing what we call fuel and appropriate fuel and chemical management practices, we will ensure that the groundwater resources are not contaminated by this project. So we have water treatment capacity would not be higher than 2 cubic meters per hour. Using standard 150-foot drainage wells will be utilized to ensure that there's drainage of any water below on the surface. Storm surge effect to solar structures is considered to be low, moderate in the long term. And all structures being constructed will be set at a minimum elevation of 20 feet above existing high water levels. Next slide. From the point of view of geotechnical, it was determined by geotechnical surveys that the subsurface soil profile consists of approximately 3 inches of relatively loose sand topsoil underlaid by a limestone formation to the explored depths. The encountered subsurface soil conditions are suitable to support the structures on a system of shallow foundations bearing on existing limestone or engineered fill material. From the point of view of erosion sedimentation, we speak about a natural buffer vegetation, right, which will reduce the risk of erosion and sedimentation washout. In terms of air quality, we recognize that best management practices with regards to construction methods will be employed to minimize emission of dust that can impair air quality. Maintain construction equipment to ensure air quality is not impaired. And parameters for air quality will be determined once the plant is functional. Noise. Again, workers will be required to wear their PPEs, for example, earplugs, air muffs, to ensure they're not affected by the noise levels. Of course, we recognize that birds will go away once they hear noise, but they will come back eventually once the construction works are completed. In terms of solid and hazardous waste, a solid waste generated would be limited to construction and vegetation removals. Fire and hurricane, we reference the need for a hurricane preparedness plan and also a fire management plan. The power plant, of course, will follow the requirements of the Bahamas Building Code. Referencing to occupational health and safety, all workers will be provided with appropriate PPEs, and workers will be trained in proper handling of equipment before starting work on the property. Of course, there'll be regular enforcement of occupational health and safety protocols. Okay, thank you so much. That's my presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time now, I'd like to present your eyes to the screen just to show some of those visuals that were spoken about in terms of the EA Energy site. This is some drone shots that was taken just today to show you the progress being made on that. As Mr. Farquharson said, there will be the groundbreaking happening April 17th. Yes, April 17th, and that's open to the public, and you all are more than welcome to join us there as well. At this time now, we're going to have our question and answers, whilst our beautiful visuals will be playing in the meantime. Because there isn't a mic on the ground, I would ask if you guys can raise your hands, I'll call on you, and if you can speak loudly enough for me, just so our online viewers can also hear the question as well. And also inviting our online community that if they have any questions, they can certainly drop it inside of our Zoom link, and we'll be sure to ask it here tonight. And at this time, I'll open the floor to any questions. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I don't know if you saw in part of the presentation where I mentioned EA is 37.5% owned by Consys Energy out of Turkey. Consys Energy, this is a group out of Turkey. 37.5% by Verdant, which is the local Bahamian company, and then 25% is Bahamian investors who bought shares on a retail market that was done by CFAL last year. Oh, okay, no problem.
I'm imagining that when all the studies were done on this plant and the provision of electricity, that at some point the finances of this would have been discussed. And I'm wondering what impact, I understand the environmental assessment, and I'm happy that you guys did do your due diligence on that. But as in terms of cost, how does this affect, or how is it projected to affect the power bills, the electricity costs to Bahamians?
Well, I mean, we're going to be a supplier to BPL. Oh, just leave it on. Okay, sorry. So we're going to be a supplier to BPL. So we're going to generate the power, and we're going to sell it to BPL, and BPL is going to turn around and sell that to the public. So right now, I mean, we're going to be generating power using gas engines, solar, and battery. So it's more efficient. It's less expensive compared to the fuel that we're purchasing now. So the cost of the electricity will come down. The cost of the production of electricity will come down. Yeah, that's the idea behind it. I mean, unfortunately. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not in a position to discuss what BPL is going to charge. I mean, we have an agreement with BPL that we'll sell to them, and then they're going to provide the power to the end users. So that's going to be a cost to them. But I think that something that most people may or may not be aware of is that the rate that you're actually paying right now is a very subsidized rate. It's not an actual true cost of what it's costing BPL to generate the power that they are, especially in the Family Islands, because you pay the same rate we do in Nassau, and the cost to produce that power here on the islands is actually a lot more than what you're paying. I mean, which, you know, I mean, we have to do it because you need the power, but yeah. So what you're actually paying is a subsidized rate.
What I'd also like to reiterate, sorry to interrupt, but if those of you who may have joined us a little late today or even want to rewatch the town hall today just to hear any tidbits or any information, our live stream will be on Fincastle Media Group's YouTube page for you to rewatch again. And please feel free to also join the EA Energy Facebook page for you to just see the town hall there as well. At this time, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, that, and I mean, and that, unfortunately, BPL, they were invited to be here tonight so that they could address some of the questions like that, because I mean, that really is a question for BPL to answer. I mean, we're going to work with them in terms of the idea we have in terms of trying to help with if persons are interested in, because it's going to be a whole new different set of skills for this kind of operation as to what they're used to now. So maybe we'll try to see if we can incorporate some of that at some point, because we're going to be operating these plants, like I said, for 25 years, and at the end of that, it's going to be turned over to BPL. So BPL will have to take over in management. So at some point, we're going to be incorporating their staffing, but at the start of it, I mean, there will be like a standby or backup, I would think, how they're going to operate. But that, like I said, is really a BPL question at this point.
What's the life of your engine?
Well, they're going to last 25 years. We plan on taking care of them. If you take care of them, maintain them properly. And the thing about it is that, I mean, we incentivize to make sure that these engines run, because that's the only way we're going to make money. If these engines are off, they're not producing power, we're not making any money. So we have to make sure that they're taken care of. We have to make sure that there's sufficient capacity to put on the grid to make sure that everybody who wants electricity gets it. So we incentivize to make sure that we maintain these engines properly, that they're always operating at peak performance and at efficient levels so that we can get the money that we need to, because we have investors who are looking to get paid. So.
Engines certified for 3,000 hours. After 3,000 hours, you get a complete overhaul.
Yeah.
That's a brand new engine. What the life of your engine?
144,000. Yeah.
144,000 hours.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So we do maintenance, we do overhaul. We're going to do overhaul just like how you overhaul your plane engines. But I mean, like I said, that means we're going to replace certain things. We're not going to replace the engine completely. The engine's not going to be replaced completely.
I'd love to see the agreement between yourself and BPL as to what you will hand over to them in 25 years. Engines run out.
No, like I said, these engines have to run. I mean, we're going to maintain them so that they're not going to be new engines after 25 years, of course. They're not going to be brand new engines. They're going to be engines that are still going to be operating at some level that could produce power and enough that we can still make money from them, So, like I said, so we're going to have to make sure take good care of them.
How much of the 60 acres will be dedicated to solar?
Well, pretty much most of it. I think there's the power plant where the engines are going to be is only probably maybe about 5 acres, I think, or 6 acres. Yeah, 5 or 6 acres. The rest of it is going to be pretty much solar. Yeah. You need like 3 acres, approximately 3 acres for 1 megawatt of power, the solar. That's roughly how much.
I'll toss my other question. You, sir.
Okay, the intent is to do the complete installation and then start generating power, or you guys doing this in phases where you complete one section and start providing some of them?
Well, right now, it's a good question. We plan to, because the solar is going to be the quickest part of it. So we plan to do the solar part first. So really here, we're starting construction this month, next month. We hope to have the solar up probably by October. October, November, sometime. So we'll have the solar up, but before the end of this year, and the gas engines won't be ready till about the end of the first quarter, second quarter of next year.
When you guys are at full operation, right? Well, if BPL doesn't shut off, you guys will be able to then take full load of Abaco.
Yeah, we're going to be the base load plant. So we're going to be the base load generating plant facilities.
When can Abaco expect to receive power from you?
So like I just mentioned, the solar we expect to have before the end of this year, and that's going to be like 15 megawatts of solar energy. And then the gas engines we expect to have by the end of the first quarter of next year, or the early part of the second quarter of next year.
So at no time will you be able to supply Abaco with just solar?
When you say just solar, what do you mean? Yeah, because I mean solar is very unstable on its own. I mean, you could be running on solar, and 10 minutes later, if a cloud rolls in, blocks the sun, the solar capacity is going to go down. So you have to have gas engines to be able to provide the base to be able to stabilize the system. Yeah, I mean the battery backup will be able to do the leveling and the secure, but right. Yeah, but like I said, the base load is going to be the engines. Yeah, the engines are going to be the base. LNG gas, yes. We're going to be bringing in gas by what we call ISO tanks, 40-foot ISO tanks that'll be coming in from Nassau, and we're going to be delivering them over the road. Yeah. Gas, I had up there, gas is 30 megawatts, solar would be 15 megawatts, and and then we have batteries of 15 megawatt hours, 20 megawatt hours. Yeah. A significant difference, yeah. It's difficult to say exactly, but it is, and then it's also, I mean, the gas, and it's also the efficiency of the engines that make a difference as well, because the LNG gas engines, sorry? Yeah, less maintenance, and they run more efficiently. So for the same level, for the same amount of gas, you can get, or the same amount of gas and diesel to combine, you get more power from the LNG engine than you would from a diesel.
25 years, you guys have managed for 25 years. I understand the lady between the 25 years, but you want to turn it forward. After 25 years, then you turn over the here. You guys have a transition period, documented there, where they have to you can do that.
I mean, that's something that we're going to work out. It's not, I think, it's not. Yeah. So I mean, we're talking about 25 years from now. So I mean, when we work, because there's a possibility it could go longer depending on what the situation is at that time. But yeah, that's something that we'll work out, because definitely we'll have to turn it over to them. And in order to do that, we have to ensure that they have the right people, they have the right staff, and they're trained in order to take it over. So.
Where can we see a copy of the agreement? Where can we find a copy of the agreement?
I think the minister just mentioned this last couple of weeks that they had presented them, and they are on their website, the Ministry of Energy. Yeah, they have them out. They put them out. The PPAs, they're public. They've been made public.
They're on public record on the Ministry of Energy and Transport's website,
Yeah.
and then the Office of the
Oh yeah. No. Specifically, Abaco and Eleuthera, we have their own PPA, one for each island.
And then you can also see in the Office of the Prime Minister's page where they recently had the energy stakeholder meeting as well, where they elaborated a bit more as well there.
Yeah, so you can.
We don't want another round the Port.
No.
They're the ones who are going to be deciding the extension of this.
Yes, sir, but
Yeah,
it
yeah,
won't be
yeah.
that as all.
But I mean, like I said, this is what we call a public-private partnership. So the government didn't have to come up with nothing in order to come up with this project. You're talking about a cost $160 million that the government didn't have to come up with to put. Well, yeah, I mean, I know you feel, but it makes sense. I mean, these are things that's being done in other parts of the world as well, so that the governments don't have to put that kind of strain on the public, on their public purse, to be able to come up with these kind of infrastructure projects. Yeah. Pastor Mills, you're a good man. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, so, yeah.
I have a question in the back here.
So I know, like you mentioned, the IPO has been done to CFAO to get extra investors.
Right.
Are there any plans for further use, whether it's through partnership with CFAO or maybe even extend it to the 6 or potential money to increase, I guess, the opportunities for other entities to invest in EA energy, but EA energy will be doing during the course of not only construction, but even within
25 years. Well, at this point, we've raised the required, pretty much everything that we need to be able to do what we need to do. So at this point, so if there's plans, and there may become plans to expand or increase our capacity depending on how the development of the island is, because like I mentioned in the presentation, one of the driving forces for this project was the amount of development that's happening, not only here in Abaco, but also in Eleuthera, homes, businesses, resorts and stuff. So the demand is increasing, I mean, very, very, very quickly. So over the next, 5 to 10 years, we do expect to see the need to continue to grow and expand that. So if that happens, we may have opportunities to be able to offer additional, shares out there for people who want to invest.
So at this point, would you guys size this plant for now, the basic needs now?
No, yeah. At least 5, yeah. We project, from what we've been able to see that was in the pipeline, 5 years, yeah. Right. Right, exactly. Yeah, no, we had to. Because you can see it. Stuff is happening. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. That's a good question. Well, that's what I'm saying, yeah. If it continues to grow like it is, and I suspect that it will, because once we have the infrastructure in place for proper and reliable sources of power, it'll encourage more investment, and encourage more businesses to come, more residents to come, so the demand will naturally grow. So, and that's only natural, that you're going to have growth and that you have to prepare for it. So, and the thing is to not wait until it's knocking on your door, so we have to kind of look at it ahead and make sure we make provisions so that by the time you really need it, we're really ahead of it.
If we have a door
Mm.
and your plant solar impacted, what's the replacement?
Well, if it's completely wiped out, like I said, the solar is actually the quickest part of the installation that we're going to be doing right now. So like I said, if the construction starts the end of this month or the first part of April, we will be finished the solar before the end of this year. So that gives you an idea of, from scratch what it's going to take to build, 60 acres of solar. Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
When you guys consider the cost of running the LNG, you guys have an agreement with the supplier for that, or?
Yeah, yes. Yes. So our costs that we agreed with BPL, we have it built in so that, right now BPL, everybody knows about the... No, but I'm just talking about, just want to reference how BPL, how they, part of their costs for generating the power is you have the fixed rate and then you have the fuel adjusted cost. So aside from, so we're not, our pricing mechanism is not strictly like that. So we have fixed in our price that we're offering them a mechanism that will be able to take in a certain level of volatility in the market. So before anything would be passed on to the residents, there has to be a really significant level of change in the pricing of the fuel that we're going to get before it impacts, before you see any impact on your bill. Yeah.
And like I said, in case if you missed that part or want to go back through the town, any of the town hall information, we'll have that on the Facebook page as well. That's EA Energy Bahamas that you guys can view there. And it's currently being streamed live on our YouTube page, and that's on Fincastle Media Group's YouTube page. Question?
Well, they won't be needed really, no. Because we got 30 megawatts of gas, like I said, 15 of battery, and during the summer peak hours, I think the demand really only gets up to about, right now, about 23 megawatts, at the peak in the summer. So in the winter, it's even less, So we have enough installed capacity right now to handle, to handle everything that's going to come at us. Even now, I mean, even since Dorian too as well, I mean, it's almost pretty much back to the pre-Dorian days now.
Any other questions at this time?
Well, it's coming in on ISO tanks, containers, the 40-foot containers. So that they're going to get filled in Nassau, and they're going to shipped on from here, from Nassau to Abaco, and they're going to be taken off of the ship and driven down to the power station.
So sorry, just throwing your direction right up here.
Sorry? No. Yeah, no, yeah.
On several occasions, at least two, one of them very recent, tanker transporting diesel to BPL, flipped over, diesel spilled. And God forbid, this should happen with LNG. Tell us what we expect.
Well, I mean, LNG in its liquid form is actually a lot more stable than it is in its gas form, because it doesn't get converted to gas until it gets to the power station. So when it gets regasified there, and that's where it comes, that's where it's more flammable. So in its liquid form, it's not as flammable, just similar to like with diesel is. You won't get that kind of, not like gas, like gasoline. Like it's not that kind of. Yeah, I mean, of course, that's going to be an issue, yeah. So we'll have to make provisions, and we have environmental plans. I think Mr. Russell mentioned that, in order for the plant, we have to put these things in place before we even get into operation. How are we going to respond to certain situations and environmental.
Doesn't it ignite easily?
No, that's what I say, it doesn't. It doesn't exact, no. Not in the liquid form, yeah.
So sorry, just before you begin, just while the attention is just for here, on the screen here, just whilst we continue our question and answer, these are the rendered images of what the plant is going to look like, correct?
Yes.
So just making sure that you guys, in case if you guys don't see it in terms of the drone shots or seeing the property itself, you guys can see what those rendered images can look like once everything is completed for each project. Sorry, go ahead.
In terms of storage on site, you guys going to keep enough energy to run for which period of time? Let's say you have to follow the ship's schedule.
Yeah. Right.
How many days you guys?
We have, I think, 10 days. But I mean, the storage capacity, I think, it was just 10 days. Yeah, we have 10 days of storage capacity. Well, 10 days, I mean, but the thing about it is the supply is coming from Nassau, and we're going to be managing the ships, because we have... Yeah, so 10 days, so I mean, and we're not going to be relying on, I mean, we'd like to use as much local as we could, but we're actually providing our own ships to do the transport from Nassau to here, so we're not relying on anybody else for that.
I hope they will really be a man of our time.
Was that?
If it comes off the Atlantic, and there are many times, you can go beyond 10 days and you cannot get into that time, get the wash out.
Okay, well, I mean, that'll be something we'll have to monitor then. We'll see how that goes, yeah.
So sorry, I'm getting a question in on our live stream.
Sure.
One of the questions says that how many jobs are we looking to secure through EA Energy on the island of Abaco?
Well, I mean, it's during the construction, there's going to be a certain level of jobs. I mean, because of this install is going to be very, I mean, it's the first time for us, so the majority of the initial labor is going to be foreign, but we're going to have some Bahamian, I think possibly up to some indirect, so possibly up to maybe 20, for during the construction. And then operations, like I said, we're going to be trying to incorporate some of the Bahamians. We haven't decided how that's going to look just yet in terms of local support, so that's something we're working through.
Thank you. Are there any other questions in the room here? Thank you for joining us. For those of you who may have been who might have missed the beginning part, we are streaming on our YouTube page, on our Facebook page as well. That's EA Energy Bahamas, and found on our YouTube page. That's at fincastlemediagroup.com. At this time, just want to socialize some more questions. One more in the back.
Is there a plan in terms of how training and succession will go to kind of, I guess, increase or turn the work from non-Bahamian employees to Bahamian employees?
Well, I mean, like I said, we're going to have that in place. At the very end of it, I mean, we're going to be turning this all over to the government as well. So like I said, at some point we're going to have 100%, where it's going to be Bahamians, because they're going to have to turn it over to them. So it's going to be either over a period of time that we're going to do it. Like I said, that's still something we're working through. That's all I can tell you right now.
So it's the intent then to, I guess, even before the final turnover.
Yeah. It's going to be ramped. It's going to be ramped. Yeah. Those are 1,000 cubic meters. Plenty. That's in gallons. That on days. Well, you said 10 days. 10 days. Sorry, I thought you said gallons. Yeah. It's 10 days storage. Sorry? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, 10%, 10 days at 100% load for the engines, the 3 engines that will be there. So it's actually, it's going to probably be a bit more than that. So, but 3 10 megawatts, 3 10 megawatt engines. No, like I said, in the summer right now, the peak demand is about 23, the peak demand. So if we're going to combine the output with engines as well as solar, so we'll only have to run certain number of engines at a particular time. So the likelihood that we'll have to run 3 engines, it's which will most likely be during because the engines, the plans for maintenance will be during the low periods, during like winter months when we're going to have low demands and whatnot.
I'm going to allow 5 more minutes for just any other questions, but this isn't the end of it. We do have light refreshments in the back. We can mix and mingle to still continue any conversation that we guys would allow from there. But at this time, just want to open the floor for 5 more minutes for any other questions in-house here, and also for our streamers or our viewers online as well.
And also, before you leave too, we have some pens and some key rings, some merchandise from EA Energy over there, so you can take and so you remember who we are.
Please feel free. We have keychains, bags, and pens as well.
Yeah.
Yes. You're still welcomed here.
I remember the last time you were here, I was pregnant. As the offering for stocks reopened, was it offered again to the Abaco community or?
No, I mean, because like I said, we were able to raise the funds that we needed so far at this point. So it was asked a little earlier that if the need comes up that we're going to expand or have need for increased capacity, we may come back out to ask for some more funds to be raised. But yeah, like I said, 25% we got, and it was quite well received by the public.
Any other questions? If not, everybody, thank you so much for joining us for the town hall for this evening. Once again, please be sure to follow EA Energy Bahamas on the Facebook page, and as well as if you need to rewatch the town halls that we're hosting today, they will be on our Facebook page, and we are also going to be in Eleuthera on Thursday hosting the same town hall there as well too. So thank you all once again. We look forward to your support, and a reminder of the groundbreaking happening April 17th that you all are more than welcome to join us for. We want to say thank you again to Friendship Tabernacle Church for hosting us here, Fincastle Media Group for providing the live stream, and EA Energy and all the team members here as well. So thank you all once again. Please feel free to still hang around, see any of the team members, and host any of those questions or conversations as well. We appreciate all of your feedback that you guys would have presented us tonight, and as well as please feel free to enjoy some light refreshments in the back, and be sure to grab you some merch for EA Energy so you won't forget us. Thank you all once again.
Thank you all.